The red graph is the graph of f of x, and we want to sketch the graph of this. And now there's a number of things happening. First of all, we have a 4. That 4 outside of the function we would describe as a vertical stretch by a factor of 4. In other words, we're going to multiply our y values by 4. Again, on an assignment or on a test or a quiz, if you had this question, unless it says describe, you don't have to write this down. But just for your notes, it's nice to have that description as well. So here inside, we have two things. We have a negative and we have a 0.5. The negative with the x, that's going to be a horizontal reflection. Anytime you're doing a horizontal reflection, that's going over the y-axis. That multiplies your x values by -1. And the 0.5, will that be a horizontal stretch or is horizontal compression? It will be a horizontal stretch by a factor of 2. So when we're talking about whether it's a stretch or a compression, we use stretch whenever we're multiplying by something bigger than 1. We use compression whenever we're multiplying something less than 1. And these two, of course, can be combined, and you can just say, I'm going to multiply x by -2. So again, we're going to use that technique that we had from before. We're going to take some key points. The most important point is where it's starting at -2, 0. If we look at what we're doing, we're multiplying y by 4 and x by -2. We don't really have to worry too much about fractions and picking our points. So I'll just pick the next easy points that I see. There's a point there. That is -1, 1. And there's a point right here, 2, 2. And if we look at where these points are going to go, again, draw your arrows, and then above the arrows, write out what you're going to do. You're going to multiply your y values by 4. You're going to multiply your x values by -2. So for the first point, if I multiply x by -2, I'm going to get 4. Y by 4, I'm going to stay at 0. For the second one, x by -2 is going to give me 2. Y by 4 will be 4. And the third one, x by -2 will be -4. Y by 4 will be 8. Graphing these points, we're going to have 4, 0, 2, 4, and -4, 8, which will be somewhat up over there. So now you've got 3 points, but the question is, if I'm going to graph this, should I graph it this way with an arrowhead this way, or should I start here and graph it this way with an arrow that way? How do we know? Well, what I find that's helpful is thinking about, this is the key point, right? This is a -2, 0. Okay, which point is that once we change it? That means this is the key starting point on our blue graph. And if that's the key starting point, if I put my pen on that one to start, well, then I know it has to go this way to graph it. I can also think about the descriptions that I wrote. Has my graph, the red graph, does it look like it was stretched by 4? Does it look like it was flipped over the y-axis? And then stretched again horizontally by 2? Well, that one might be a little hard to tell by this point, but it seems reasonable. So if all of a sudden your points give you a graph that doesn't quite fit that description, it might be that you'd want to check one of your points, because it's easy to make a mental math error somewhere along the way. Again, it wants the domain and range of each of these, so I'll do the red one first. The domain was x was bigger than or equal to -2, and the range was your y values were bigger than or equal to 0. And then on our blue graph, the domain now is x is less than or equal to 4, and the range is still y is bigger than or equal to 0. And you can check, did that match with what we did? If I multiply y by 4, would 0 stay 0? Yes. If I multiplied x by -2, would -2 become 4? Yes. All right, once again, I'll give you the questions, but we will do example 4